Hey everyone, Escape211 here. It has been a long time since I have posted any videos on Mech Arena, and that is because just had a lot of things going on in RL, real life, and just a lot of changes that have happened in the game. So part of that is me wrapping my brain around that. So this video is going to be a little different. I'm not going to do gameplay. It's just going to be talking about some of these changes and in relation to my other videos. So a lot of my past videos, highlight different mechs, look at them, talk about basics, and there's a good degree of that has changed. It doesn't completely change the identity of a lot of these mechs, but certainly some of them. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. The game has gotten an overhaul largely in how it puts the value on each of its mechs, each of its weapons, and it definitely has adhered more to the idea of there being common, uncommon, rare, epic, and legendary in terms of their starting power level. And this is important for both mechs and for weapons, more so for weapons, largely because weapons that are lower grade are going to take a lot more credits to upgrade, and because this game will largely base all of its upgrade structure around credits. Everything needs credits, so you're going to need a lot of credits for everything. So that just inherently means that some of these weaker weapons that we have in terms of just them being common or uncommon, and even some rare ones, are going to see less play, which is tough because there's certain basic ones like RPO rockets and the lasers that are pretty, standard stuff that a lot of people use once they get to mid-high level play, but you're not going to see those nearly as much unless the AI is using them, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But that is kind of the main change of the landscape. So with that framing in mind, we're going to go through the mechs and then some of these weapon classes and talk a little bit about it. All right. So first of all, you'll notice when you are on the main screen, if you hit the inventory button and then click on one of your mechs, this whole screen and layout is different than before. I like this. I think it's a really nice aesthetic, as well as it gives you a little bit more idea of what the mech is good at and its traits specifically. Now, of course, we know Lancer has his jump jets ability, but some guys that either didn't have an ability or focus on different types of stuff of traits. It's nice to see this. You'll also see up in the top corner, his level is 5, and he's at what is now considered MK1. This MK upgrade system is what you're going to see this game follow from now on. Your level number will indicate your exact level, but the MK level is going to, kind of indicate your overall sliding scale of power level. MK1 and level 5 is pretty low. I believe this game, for both its mechs and weapons, now go up to like level 50. If I were to upgrade Lancer once, you can see that it's going to affect his HP and his power level, and he's just going to be a level 6. I believe once you hit level 7, you go up to MK2, so you'll see one of those little hash marks fill in again, and then you'll see MK2. So that's kind of how the power level increases. But again, that gives you the idea that, a common mech like Lancer is going to start at a lower power level, whereas an uncommon will start a little higher, and then a rare will get even higher, and so on and so forth, right? So there's going to be this difficulty of trying to use your common and uncommon mechs and weapons and seeing it be effective in battle. Now, you'd think that everyone is going to be on an even playing field, so that's not a huge deal, right? Well, the problem is that the AI in the game has also been changed. It's been upgraded in some sense, which it kind of needed. Some AI was a little bit too easy to get around. Primarily if you're using Shadow, it was easy to deal with the enemy if they're AI, but the AI has also been given upgraded weapons depending on where you are in your power level and your ranking on the ladder, and it's almost always going to be a higher power level in all of its weapons than you. So you will see AI users use some of the lower or the more common or uncommon mechs and weapons and do devastating, or largely compared to you, more devastating power level because they just had a higher level upgrade. onto them that you're usually not there yet. I mean, really, for all these, I think there's charts out there that prove it's going to be a lot of credits to upgrade any one of these guys. I mean, if you look at Lancer, he's only level 5, he's MK1, and if I use one upgrade on him, it would use almost all my credits. And then that just, you know, of course, increments up higher. So ultimately, it's going to be pretty difficult. So with that said, there hasn't been any change in the common mechs, but except their power level being low. And in most of the uncommon mechs, not a change either. Although I will say, for a Killshot, the sliding scale of power level has kind of been an indirect nerf in the immediate space for Killshot, just because you need to upgrade him to upgrade his dash ability, and since that's a damage-based ability, it upgrades with his power level. So since he's only uncommon, if you used Killshot to kill people a lot with his melee dash, you're going to have a lot harder time doing that until you upgrade him a bunch. So keep that in mind. I still think Killshot is awesome for an early scout and getting around on the board, and he has, you know, a decent energy level, but he's lost some of that value as the straight-up assassin and being that lethal, just because his dash is inherently less powerful until you upgrade it a lot. So keep that in mind. The other thing that has massively changed that I haven't really talked about is Panther. The last time I did a video of Panther, he was very basic, and he didn't have any abilities or anything, but now he has Stasis Barrier, which is a huge upgrade. You see this guy a lot more on the field just because of this ability. Whereas before, I would say that Paragon was a better mech than Panther because they were relatively the same in powered energy level, but Paragon had a little bit better health and an ability to give him a speed boost. The opposite is now the case, that Panther is better, largely because he has team play and survivability with Stasis Barrier. Stasis Barrier lets out an energy barrier that slows enemies that try to go through it, as well as blocks enemy bullets. So really what happens is when you use this ability, it shoots out 4 little circles that look very similar to Cheetah's mines in a straight line, and then shoots up an energy barrier and protects you and all your teammates. So it's kind of like a mobile, I'm sorry, place it wherever you want to type of shield that, you know, isn't mobile, it's static, but allows you to place it to cover yourself and teammates at any point. So it's really good for team play. It gives Panther a lot of survivability while still letting him keep his high energy. So it's been really, really good, really useful for him. And I think that he is one, you know, you're going to want to use more. It takes a little while to get used to the Stasis Barrier, because once you push the button, it shoots out all 4 little tower pieces and makes the wall right away. So you're going to want to, you know, get used to how that actually gets placed. But overall, it's a really good ability, and it won't take too long. It's not super intuitive, but it's still pretty quick to understand. Once you play with him a bit, you'll see how useful that ability is and how good he is now in the landscape. So definitely a guy worth using. But yeah, otherwise, he's still uncommon, still decent. Shadow is one that has changed a lot in these past couple of the major update and the small little updates. So they renamed his ability Stealth instead of the acronym, which was kind of nice. But his ability, his stealth ability, isn't as strong or as useful against the AI computer. So because the AI got an upgrade in terms of its weapons and its ability to still try to manually target Shadow, he's gotten kind of a big nerf in this whole thing. And on top of that, a lot of the weapons that are 2 cost or 4 cost that he would use, you know, I would say namely Bone Dust and Shredder, in my opinion, are the best weapons on him, or they were the best. But because of the sliding power scale, those are uncommon weapons. They're not going to be that strong. So he's lost some of that value if you played him that way, and some of that inherent power level. So he's really felt the difference of this whole thing. I would say that once you are able to upgrade the Shredder weapon quite substantially, he probably won't be that bad. But as of right now, in the immediate meta, you see a lot less of Shadow around. Some consider that a good thing, some not so much. So it's a little bit skewed, or I mean a little bit divided on whether that's a good change or a bad change. But overall, he's definitely felt the effects of all the changes. Ares is one that you're starting to see a little bit more of in play, reversely, I guess, in some sense. He hardly saw play before because his shield felt like it was easier to take down, but now because players' weapons are just weaker, his shield stays up a little bit longer. So in the immediate meta, Ares has seen a little bit of a boost in playtime, which has been kind of nice, but I think long-standing, he won't see that much play, and you'll see him kind of slide out of the meta more and more as people upgrade their mechs and get back into their regular, you know, power level that they were before. Next up is Guardian. Guardian is one who has vastly changed. Before, he was basically just a big 8/8 mech who was pretty strong, but, you know, that's about all he did. But now he has an ability called System Crash. System Crash is almost like the little brother version of the EMP from Zephyr. System Crash has a smaller radius and does a little bit less to enemy mechs, but when you use System Crash and it hits the enemy, it will put all their abilities that they either were using or not using on cooldown, and then puts all of their weapons on cooldown. So it basically stops them from being able to attack you or use abilities, which is really nice for a short amount of time. But the thing is that the enemy can still move. It's not like Zephyr where it completely disables them and they can't move. It also has a much smaller radius. It's only about 30 meters, and I don't know if it actually goes through walls. I'm not entirely sure. I think in my play experience, it wasn't really going through walls, so I don't think it does in the same way Zephyr's does. But it is, you know, pretty strong, pretty powerful, pretty useful ability, and of course is beneficial to the rest of your team. So it's made him become a bit more of a power player. He's definitely one that will take down medium to large size mechs a little bit better, especially when you're going toe-to-toe. He has the advantage there. The other thing to say about a System Crash is that it has a very quick cooldown, in my opinion. You know, and of course much quicker than Zephyr's, but that's probably because its radius and what it does is weaker. So they just kind of made those two a little bit different and opposing. So that makes it, you know, in my opinion, still a really great ability. It actually helps it because it allows it to come back into play more. Depending on who you're fighting, if you're fighting a bigger mech, you'll probably get to use it a couple times. So that just means, you know, you're going to see more benefit out of that ability. So overall, I would say Guardian is a strong player. You definitely see him a lot more in the field. I use him a lot more, and he's a very good mech. So that said, that covers the main mechs. The other mechs that I don't have, there's been some changes. First of all, I'll say with Cheetah, even though I don't have him, you definitely have seen less Cheetah on the board, but that's again because, you know, he has a certain power level that he was and where he is now, and because his power level is lower, it's dropped the effectiveness of his mines. I don't know if they nerfed the mines overall or if it's just they've nerfed, not nerfed, sorry, but changed the way the level and upgrading system works so that they appear weaker. But either way, you've seen a drop in Cheetah just because of this. So yeah, if you use Cheetah or want to use him, be wary of that, and you may need to bring his power level back up to something that will let him be sustainable. Zephyr, his ability has largely been unchanged. EMP is still a great ability, and you still see about the same amount of him on the board. Brickhouse, I thought before, you know, this guy I've seen maybe a slightly less amount of, because I thought I'd see more because he has a higher power level, but because he doesn't really have any ability attached to him, you know, it may not help him at all. Other mechs that are bigger like him, aside from like Juggernaut, usually have 8 energy. So I'm guessing that people prefer having more of the energy than less, because, you know, it doesn't really do a lot of good if you have a body that sticks around but he can't put out as much damage. So maybe that's why you see a slight decline or a slight less use of Brickhouse, but he's still pretty common. I think a lot of people still use him. He's still a great tank. I don't think there's anything that he's really hurt by too much from this change, except, you know, how it affects all mechs universally. Still a great guy to use. I'm sure I haven't used him, like I've said. Of course, I don't have him unlocked, but that's just from what I've seen in play. Now let's go on to weapons. So again, all of these common weapons remain still about the same as they were, but the problem is that their power level is just lower. Here's the one thing that's interesting that they've done to change weapons. Weapons now usually are in pairs, right? You have 2 RPOs or 2 lasers of 2 energy and 4 energy. Now they're all coupled together. So if I were to upgrade my RPOs here, the 2 energy ones, it would upgrade both of them at the same time, which is kind of nice. It simplifies the upgrading process. The only problem is it looks like it costs twice as much just because of the fact that they're coupled together. So you're kind of already paying the double amount. You're not really getting any benefit, except it's just more of a, simplifying the whole leveling up process. To me, this kind of stinks because I'm sure there are times where I would want to upgrade just one and not the other if I'm only using one of these weapons. But I think if, credits come in better later on as the game goes and you can upgrade this stuff and all that more consistently, then it's going to be nice that everything's simplified like this. So it's hard to tell right now until we get further into the game and we get like global launch and all that kind of stuff. But that's kind of the deal with the common weapons. The uncommon weapons, you see the same kind of issue. They are also in the category of being too weak to really see a whole lot of play. Bone Dust and Shredder were really only useful on a couple mechs. The CG weapons I've never really found super useful, and the sniper guns, the KSCs, have always been something I shy away from because I'm not as skilled a user, I think, to play those. But I think they've, of course, lost some power level just like everything else. So I would say most cases, a lot of people right now, because you're limited in how much credits you have and how you play, are going to be using rare and up weapons. For the most part, as much as you can, I'm guessing that's where you're going to put most of your time into. I would say, of course, you want to prioritize your strongest weapons. So if you, like me, have these AR weapons unlocked, you're going to use those. If you have the pack lands unlocked, you're going to use those. But I mean, the rest of the other stuff kind of stay in the same category, right? So I'm still not a huge fan of power mags. I'm not a huge fan of the PB launching weapons, the Jericho, Samson, and Gideon. And I'm not a huge fan of the Nightfall and Luna. Those aren't bad weapons, and they certainly have a little bit more power level, but they just don't really fit into my play style, and I don't think they're as effective as the AR weapons and the pack lands and other stuff, so I tend to use them less. I definitely still rely on similar weapon structures that I did before, and you'll see that in my bay, really. It's like pretty much all pack land AR weapons, so, because those are the highest grade weapons that I have. So it allows me to get the most damage out of what I currently have. So really, the change in all this is boiled down to a higher dependency on credits. And I'm sure they're doing that because they want to have somewhere that breaks between the free-to-play and then the paying players, which is totally fine, totally understandable. I hope that gap loosens or closes a little bit more as we get closer to global launch and they give us a little bit better way to get credits. They did change how the challenges work, and all of them give credits, which is very nice. But my hope is that, in a given day, if you complete most of your challenges, that you'll have over 30,000 credits, because just doing like one upgrade on one weapon or one mech is at least, 30,000 when you are at, a mid-level play. And then even some of these, as you get up to higher level, it's 50,000 a day. So it's going to happen really quick that you're going to have weapons you can't upgrade past a certain level, and it's going to take you a week at least, if not longer, to upgrade one weapon or one weapon set. So, I mean, you want to try to keep that in mind. Right now, I think it's longer than a week if you... I'm not sure exactly how it all scales, but that's the whole idea. It's going to take a long time for you to upgrade anything. So you really want to focus on your best weapons, your most powerful weapons, and also the weapons that you think you're going to get the most play out of in longevity. I mean, some people who are long range players will probably focus on lasers and the KSCs, but nothing wrong with that. But I mean, those are going to take a longer time to upgrade. So you're going to want to use something in the interim. It's going to let you be competitive, and then switch to those once you get them into like MK4, MK5 range. So I like that this allows all weapons to have a substantial power level in the long term, but it's just going to take a little while to get there. So I think I hope that the game landscape will change and allow us to still be competitive, whether we're free to play or paying. But so far, I think the changes overall, even though they're more focusing on the long term, are a good thing. And it's just going to take us all a little while to adjust. I'm trying to do it myself, and I'm sure all of you are. So that gives you an idea of what this update has been like and where the game is. I hope all of you found that useful. Sorry there's no gameplay. Sorry if this felt too short. But if you have questions about this update, or if you want to see something, feel free to make any comments that you have below. And yeah, we'll see you out there on the battlefield.